So I did a little bit of merchandise design for Iron Maiden at the time. Got paid a few grand for that, and I thought, well, there's a plane ticket. I'll just take a trip out and see what's going on. So I went out to Los Angeles, and then I never really looked back.
Welcome back to the Jupiter podcast. I'm your host, Tom Franklin, and today we have on the wonderful Mr. Sam Shearon. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. Maybe it's Sharon, but I think it's Sheeran. He's nodding his head, and I can see him through the camera in the green room. I became aware of of Sam through Tommy McCollum's podcast, Let's Get Freaky, and I seen him on there, and I was like, I got to get him on. You know, he's done like some album covers for Rob Zombie. I think he had something to do with Slayer. All the things that I loved growing up. Big metalhead myself, and he's also had quite a few encounters with the paranormal, and so he graciously accepted, so he's on the show. So if you keep finding yourself coming back to Jupiter, please do me a favor, like, subscribe to the channel. Hope I gained that trust with you today. If you really enjoyed, go ahead and become a member, and you get some of this earlier than the rest, and eventually I'll have a nice repertoire, and it'll be things that you only find over there, or maybe I'll put it on some other place so we'll figure it out when we get there. Anyhow, you can also get yourself some merch that's down in the description below. You can find all the MP3 stuff. You can also find me on Facebook. You can find me on Rumble. Go ahead and subscribe on my Rumble. I'm a couple short of getting to a certain bar, and to which they start taking care of me. Anyway, we keep trucking along, and I'm really enjoying what I'm doing. And so with all that out of the way, me sitting here in front of the camera by myself, which is always very uncomfortable, let's welcome to the show Mr. Sam Shearon.
Hey. How you doing?
Well, I was fuddling over there. What did you hear me? Did you hear me over there messing up?
Names, far too many similar names. Yeah.
It's hard to remember. It's hard to remember after a while, especially being in your line of work, all the connections you have to go through to get to somebody, running here and there. I can imagine it's hard to keep track sometimes.
Yeah, two Tommies in one month.
So you're out in California. You are from Liverpool. I think that's in. Hold on, let me see if I can remember your birthday. I think it's March 15th, 1978.
That's right. Yeah. Wow, you did your research.
Yeah, I did. Not much. I was just, get a little bit of background on you. And dude, tell a little bit about yourself and how you got from, sunny England all the way to rainy California.
Well, as you say, I'm from Liverpool. I was born in Liverpool, but I actually grew up in Runcorn, Cheshire, which is just sort of on the outskirts of Liverpool. For those of you who are not familiar with the UK, it's in the northwest. And then I sort of spent my teens and 20s, early 30s on the edge of the Irish Sea in a little town, Victorian town, further north, called Lytham St. Anne's. And it was around 2006, 2007. I became friends with a band out in Los Angeles. A guy, Jason Charles Miller, was the singer, but this he's now solo under that name. And Jason, after he'd seen my artwork that I'd done for the band, said, hey, if you ever need a place to stay in Los Angeles, come visit. So I did a little bit of merchandise design for Iron Maiden at the time. Got paid a few grand for that. And I thought, well, there's a plane ticket. I'll just take a trip out and see what's going on. So I went out to Los Angeles, and then I never really looked back. I just sort of kept visiting back and forth. And then got myself a work visa when I decided, I think I'm going to stay for a little while. And then after that, I decided, after a few years, I thought, well, I think we're going to stay for a long while. And then I applied for the green card, built a file, did that, and now I'm in Los Angeles. So yeah, long story short, I went the correct route and made sure that's what I wanted to do, and ticked off all the boxes, and they said, "Welcome to America." So here I am.
Yeah, dude, that's I love that. Anytime anyone does whatever it is that they really love to do, I don't care if it's like shining a shoe or putting apples in a barrel, no matter what it is, if people can get to do what it is that they really want to do in their life, that for me is like true freedom. And I always find that to be just the most pleasing thing for me. That's what I'm trying to do here as well. And I think that is it's just I love that kind of thing. So you are then an artist. Are you also a musician as well?
Not currently. I have dabbled in the past, but I'm not going to say that I'm a musician or I'm a touring rock star or anything like that at all. I am working on music at the moment, but that's sort of a little side part of what I'm doing. That's more of a hobby at this stage. I'd like it to sort of branch out into something larger, but I do work with a hell of a lot of bands, and I do know a hell of a lot of people in the industry from various different rock bands throughout my career for creating artwork for them. So at some point, it's been about 10 years now that I've had this idea where I thought to myself, well, I'd love to put an album together myself and then poach and have guests from all of these bands sort of appear on this album. And that's a pipe dream, but it's starting to take fruition, which is really exciting. We'll see where that goes. But again, that's more of a side thing to what I do. First and foremost, I am a visual artist and a writer. So
okay,
that's where it is.
All right. So, okay, tell me. Let's get into that. First of all, could you tell people where they can find you? Your social media or your websites or things like that.
As with everybody, there's a million different social media platforms these days. There's everything from the Facebook, the Instagram, and onwards, Reddit even. I'm on all of them, and you can find it all sort of linked on my main one website. I'm most active on Instagram, but you can find all the other links, Patreon even, X, Twitter, whichever you want to call it. And it's MrSamShearon.com, and the Mr is the word MISTER, and then Sam, and then SHEARON, MrSamShearon.com. And as I say, everything's on there. You can even just reach out via email through that. It's all there.
That's fantastic. Yeah. It's I can't do but so many. I think I still haven't really figured out Instagram. I don't really understand it. I'm an old guy, so I think you're a little older. Yeah, you're like 2 years older than me, but I don't get all of it. I'm just trying to figure out Rumble today and how to live stream to that. We'll see how that works on Friday.
Nice.
I am completely impaired when it comes to the technical aspects of what I'm trying to do. And trust me, I reach out and ask a lot of questions that seems very obvious to many people, but
nonetheless. Yeah, no, I'm the same. It can be a nightmare. I do believe there's a way to multi-stream on Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook all at the same time. There's a program. If I remember it, I'll message you afterwards.
The one I have, I can do 3 at one time. The one we're using right now, I can do 3. And I was using Twitch, but now I don't get much traction over there, so I'm going to bump it over to Rumble. Anyhow, that's neither here nor there. Let's get into the nitty gritty. What kind of books have you been writing about, and what are the subjects? And how did you get started doing that?
Well, that's a strange one, because I'm not your typical author in a sense. I've written a book on Bigfoot. I have written about Bigfoot, and David Weatherly, who's a friend of mine but also a client, he writes a lot of different books within the whole sort of umbrella of the unexplained, but mostly in cryptozoology. He's more of a legend tripper, where he'll dig up legends from all the different states, including all the cryptids and the ghost stories. And he's been doing a book series. It's loosely sort of titled the United States Monster State series. It's basically every single book is a different state. and I've done the cover artwork for all of them. We're doing all 50 states, and I believe we're up to 18 at the moment. So every few months, when both of us are not working on something else, we sort of put our heads together, and he does all the writing. They're his books essentially, but I've done all the cover artwork. So at some point, it's going to be a nice shelf collection of 50 books, the Weatherly and Sheeran collection.
Awesome.
And he's done a series of books called Wood Knocks, which is all about Bigfoot. And he invited various other authors to write chapters of their theories and experiences on the Sasquatch phenomena. And I think it was volume 4. I put a chapter in there as well. But mainly my own book. I'm fascinated with folklore and legends and old world stuff. Particularly over the last 10 years or so, I've been very interested in winter legends or seasonal legends. And obviously, mostly Christmas is becoming more and more popular in a darker take with the Krampus phenomenon. Krampus has exploded into this pop culture icon now, the Christmas devil. But I've done so much digging over the last 10 years. I ended up releasing Christmas card collections and of all these different characters throughout folklore, which some, talking to my friends over on Sasquatch Tracks, another podcast, Micah Hanks and Dakota Waddell and Jeff, they're all talking about these ancient legends themselves. And we sort of tied together that some of the old Christmas legends may, in fact, be based on wild men, big hairy men with beards who live in the woods. Gifting, you've heard that thing with Bigfoot. It's all seemingly loosely tied together. So I went down that road. And then my manager was saying, well, this could be a TV series. This could be a series of films. And time went by. I ended up having meetings with producers, and then we had a showrunner involved. And things were starting to sort of pick up speed, but they were morphing into things that I hadn't written. And it started to become a little typical sort of Hollywood, where they'll say, okay, this is great, but we're going to do this with it.
Right.
And I started to have this sort of icky feeling of, well, that's not what I had in mind. And I'm not too precious, I'm not particularly that protective of my work. Of course, writers are going to change things. They're going to add things. They're going to make it work better for the audience that they know will buy into it. But this was so left field from what I was doing. I sort of had to sit back, and the pandemic happened, which was kind of a silver lining in a way because everything stopped. And it gave me enough time to say, okay, well, what am I going to do with this when it all, when everything's open again and running? What am I going to say about where I want it to go? And I had a good chat with my manager, and she said, well, just write the book. If you write the book, they can't stray too far from it. And so that's what I've been working on for the last couple of years is 13 stories, all fiction, but based around the legends to do with the old winter, dark winter, creepy Christmas is the term. And so that's hopefully due out either this Christmas or next Christmas. We're not sure just yet, but it's a big book. It's a big series of stories, all kinds of monsters. So yeah, that's a fun one.
Yeah, that's amazing, dude. I just love that you're able to financially support yourself well enough with your art, because I did go on your Instagram and I've seen some of your actual renderings of Bigfoot and other cryptids and things like that. Oh, this all right, okay. I actually did some research, guys. I know most of the people who watch the show are going, "Oh, you did some research?" Like, today I did some. Yeah. So what got you started in this whole? Because I also did Hellbilly Deluxe 2. I never listened to the second one. I listened to the first one. I'm a big White Zombie, Rob Zombie fan.
Oh yeah.
Love his shit. I love, House of a Thousand Corpses and all his style is carnival and grotesque and creep show shit. I really enjoy his flavor in it. His live performance is a little, lackluster. I'm sorry. I know you might be your friend or whatever, but that's just my personal opinion. He does say yeah a lot too. And it's just, that's the comic part of me in my head. It's kind of like Led Zeppelin with Baby.
Yep.
Yeah. What got you started like in this? It's just like, does something happen to you, or it's just a general interest, or, like watching, shows when you were a kid?
I think it's all of that. I think, I'm nobody special. I think we can all agree and relate to the same things, which is why we're talking. We're into the same stuff, I remember being at university in England when I was doing my degree, which really didn't teach me anything. I don't want to sound big-headed, but it was kind of what else are you going to do but go to university if you can? But then you do it and you think, well, that was kind of, I should have just done what I was doing anyway. But it was an experience. But while I was there, I had a poster of Rob Zombie on my bedroom wall.
Oh.
I was a typical 19-year-old kid. Long hair. I still have the long hair. I'm last of the Mohicans. I never cut my hair unlike all my other friends did. They all sort of got the suits and the jobs and the desk jobs and the families and the mortgages and things. And I kept the long hair and moved to Los Angeles. But it's a case of that lifestyle. There's a lot of us around still, like yourself. We're roughly the same age. And I loved White Zombie and I loved Hellbilly Deluxe. And of course, House of Thousand Corpses was it was kind of a strange benchmark that appeared in film, where the age of movies being banned, horror movies, was sort of in the 70s, and there hadn't been a film that was banned in forever. And Rob Zombie comes along and produces something that's so grotesque, almost on purpose to get more notoriety, some would say. But it worked, and everybody wanted to see this film, and then it was properly released. And it's fantastic. It still holds up today.
It is. It's great.
It's amazing. Incidentally, I just did a market, like a mini convention, a horror market run by the Hyena Gallery in Los Angeles, here in Burbank. And they had all little vending tables, and I vended there with my own prints and books and things. And Bill Moseley was there next to me in his booth. So that was really spooky. It was just like, oh, hey, Bill. So it's a small world, but as you say, being a fan of White Zombie and Rob Zombie for so long, if I could go back and say, hey, you're gonna, do artwork for him at some point, I'd sort of be smiling and dreaming, but it did happen. And it's good. And there's been a sort of a snowball effect from that. Other people it's a word of mouth thing where they say, oh, you did that? Oh, I'd love you to work with me, or I'll approach about it and say, hey, here's X, Y, Z.
You also did Biohazard too. You did Biohazard.
Biohazard,
You did Biohazard
Fear
too,
Factory.
didn't you? Yeah,
I did Biohazard's last
You did
album.
Fear Factory? Which album did you do for Fear Factory?
I did voiceover work on Fear Factory.
One of my favorite bands.
I did a bunch of t-shirt designs. I've done a ton of stuff for Burton. Good friends with Burton.
Really?
He's a super nice guy. Yeah. He came over to my house for coffee.
Very intelligent dude too. Really intelligent, smart, very in the moment.
He's a lovely man.
He's a lovely person. Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Burton C. Bell is the singer, the former singer of Fear Factory, one of my favorite bands because Demanufacture. Enough said.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, Burton. Let's be honest. Burton is Fear Factory, and that's where it is. He left, and I think that was the end of the band, as far as I'm
pretty
concerned.
much. Yeah, me too.
No disrespect to Dino and the guys, or the new singer, but if they want to do something, they should really change the name. It's not Fear Factory. It's just not. But
no,
that's just my personal opinion.
And he also got the basis from. I think the former basis of Static X is in there, but that's fine. I'm fine with
Tony Campos. Yeah.
So let's get into some of the paranormal, because people now watching are itching. We're 20 minutes in. They're like, okay,
probably, yeah.
Yeah. It's just because I've had some. It's kind of why I started the show, because I've had some of it myself, and I just want to know what has been yours.
Again, I was saying, we've all had strange experiences, and I think I was saying this on Tommy Collins' Let's Get Freaky podcast, where we were talking about where it all begins. And I think there are two kinds of people. We sort of split as children. Some of us have experiences at an early age, and some of us don't.
Okay.
And I think the ones that do, however wild and crazy or even subtle they are, I think it really opens your mind and you start to notice things, whereas other kids don't. I think some kids will have more of an imagination just naturally, maybe depending on the TV shows or the books they read, even down to the location they live. I grew up on the edge of a forest, which was spooky, and it had its own history of
Special in England.
yeah,
Special in England. People don't realize that place is a foggy, damp, mossy place.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's so old as well. The history of it. London alone is 2,000 years old, and I don't think a lot of people realize that. They think England is like, oh yeah, a few hundred years old. No, it's 2,000. That's London, and then it goes even further back then through the pagan eras. It's just a colossal amount of ghosts.
Yeah.
But everywhere's haunted, and I did have experiences as a kid, and there's been occasions in adulthood where I think, as I was saying, when you have that experience as a child, you're more open to it throughout your life. And there are some people that want it so much, and they kind of pretend, and they get obsessed with it, and they go down this kind of crazy road, and there's a few people that decide to become mediums, which I don't buy into. I think there are some people who can see the dead or hear the dead, I'm sure. But I think for the most part, 99.9% of them are just faking it because they really, really enjoy it and they want to be a part of it. It's much the same as these ghost shows. You see a ton of them on these ghost shows. It's all scripted. It's not real. If it was real, it would be global news overnight. The dead have been contacted. There's proof. If it was real, it would be everywhere. It'd be on national news. Same with Bigfoot. Expedition Bigfoot, Finding Bigfoot. The scripted shows.
I'll give you a little bit of pushback on the paranormal stuff. I do agree. I do agree that a lot of it, especially being a person in Hollywood, you would see the inside of it, especially when it comes to any type of reality. It's not reality; it's scripted reality. But I do know people who just simply their projects don't get off the ground because they don't get any type of backing. I'm thinking of Austin. I can't think of his last name, but he does the Dead Chronicles, and it's some very compelling evidence. And with your experience that you've had, and the experience that I've had with poltergeist myself when I was 8, shit is real, man. It's real.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, when you say
and what it is
that's a good point. And just to sort of clarify, I'm not suggesting for a second any of this is not real. These things do exist. These things do happen. What I'm saying is there's a lot of people out there that cash in on it.
Oh, yeah.
And pretend.
Oh.
And that's what I'm saying. Those things are not real. Those things are not real. And if that were proven on TV, as I say, it would be global news overnight, but it's not. Your friends there that don't get the money and they don't get the green light to do these shows, those people, I've no doubt the real thing. What I'm saying is it's a lot of commercial crap that will claim, oh, did you hear this? And it's literally a sound effect that's been put on the film. And and again, you have 25 plus different seasons of Ghost Adventures, and you think, how hard is it to actually just present real audio, EVP, like real stuff that I've heard that people have presented to me that is recorded that you cannot debunk. Physical interactions, visual witnesses, these things do go on, but there's so slivers of it on television, just even slight things. And I think, unfortunately, they're expected to deliver on every episode. So
right.
It gets to a point where, Zach Baggins is possessed every episode. It becomes ridiculous.
Yeah. But there's a lot of I speak to a lot of paranormal investigators. What happens is they'll say, they'll be there the whole night and, maybe 70% of the time nothing happens. But when you're under some type of budget restrictions and you have, the studio on top of you so they have to sensationalize it, which I am completely against. I want to get to the real stuff. And then if it takes you 6 months to make a show, that's not feasible economically. So that's what happens to it. But I think a lot of shows, like Tommy's, mine, and many others that I'm friends with, they talk to the people who are like, this is what I have, and I've collected it over the years. And here, Tom, here's this piece of information. Look, you can see this moved here. The clock stopped at this time, and why is it wound? It's sitting in. It's like things where you're just like, oh my god. So I understand what you're saying. I understand.
Yeah. And again, it's it's no doubt in my mind that there's another reality to this. There's another dimension that we can't see. Whatever it is, that the whole spectrum of senses that we have are just limited to a point. I mean, dogs can only see from sort of brown to blue, and they have this gray field where all of the colors we see is just one thing to them, which is why sometimes if you play with them with a new toy or a treat, they can't even see it. And sometimes you think, oh, you silly dog, it's right there. But they can't see it, And I think that's the same thing's happening with us. There are things that are in a different plane of existence. If someone, I don't think we have the language to really fully explain it is the problem. We don't have the words or the terminology, maybe yet, to really kind of outline what's going on. For some people scientifically, for other people to just understand and wrap our heads around it. But it is absolutely happening. And again, to reiterate, what I just don't like are the TV shows that fake things, that are scripted. And entertaining is good, and it is fun. And I do enjoy the historical aspect of some of these shows, where they will go to a place and they'll tell you about the history and what has happened, and some of the ghosts that people have seen in the past. Those things I find fascinating. And there's a lot of Bigfoot, podcasts out there that do the same thing, where they'll have guests on that will talk about their experiences. And I love that.
Yeah.
What I don't like is when it's, as you say, it's regurgitating to meet the budget to produce the show on schedule. They have to have something happen, and that part it's just cringe. It's just really bad.
Fair enough.
And there's Bigfoot shows that do that too. It's scripted, and you just think, come on, guys.
There's even music like that too, dude. There's music like that too. You'll hear an album. Yeah. There's a band that's a certain way. Like I was a big Slayer fan. Like you give me all the way up until
yeah.
I wouldn't even say until the Diablos and Musica, like music. I speak Spanish a little bit. Diablos and Musica in '98. Like that was like the last where I was like, okay. And then they came out with whatever the album they had, that song on a Flesh Storm. I like that one. But then it World Painted Blood, and then like it's just like you guys are doing it. You're like when you get 50 and 60 years old, and you're talking about the devil, and you're yelling, and you're playing these fast, you're playing these fast riffs and shit.
Yeah.
After a minute, it's just like, okay, is there anything to it? They're just kind of running through the motions because there's some type of record company behind them who says to them, within a 10-year period, you have to put out 5 records. So a lot of it's forced instead of being natural, and it gets watered down, and it just makes me kind of go, all right, come on, it happens. It's sad, but I think we're at a point, like, I think Hollywood in a sense is kind of eating itself, like the snake is eating its tail. Music has become, they don't make any money on album sales. It's all merch and going live. That's pretty much it. And
streaming has killed everything. Streaming has killed every aspect of entertainment, as you say, music as well, film, TV. It's so accessibly easy to create your own stuff. I mean, here we are now creating our little conversation, which is your show, and you'll put it out on your channel with all of your episodes. And so everyone can do this now. I'm working on my own thing, but the problem we have is, and particularly with AI, now I know you use AI for some of your visuals. I don't like AI myself. I think it has really eaten up a lot of the art world and taken away opportunities for people who have, like myself, spent decades trying to perfect. And if someone uses it for budgetary reasons or aesthetic reasons, that's fine. But we have a whole group of musicians and visual artists coming out, releasing stuff as though it's their own work and selling it. And that is the real bugbear for me, is these overnight artists. And they're drowning everybody else as though it wasn't already hard enough to be seen and to make money in the art industry, whether it's music or visuals. It was so difficult already to be the best and be seen even. In music now, is everybody's streaming. If you go onto Spotify and you type in industrial music, you're going to find some of the top heavy hitters, but even they are disappearing and being swallowed by oceans of crap.
All like any like big concerts you have, like where they have a bunch of them together. Like there's a big one in Europe. Is what's the one? The one in Germany in the north. Rock am Ring, I think it's called. I think it's what it used to be called. And all those bands that you go to see are all like old now. There's no There's nobody behind them coming up to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What's that one 7-day Adventist, whatever that one is. You know what I mean? Like, you know, Rammstein. I love Rammstein. I love their visuals. I love their feel. I love their lyrics. I speak German. I'm fluent in German, so I know everything he's saying. He's very artistic in the way he does wordplay. If you know anything about what he's saying, like in the song Deutschland, he actually he uses a part in there where he says Deutschland, Deutschland über alles, which is the old German. What's the word? Like America has the Star Spangled Banner. It's their old Pledge of Allegiance, whatever that is. I can't think of the word right now. But that's the old one during the Reich. But the way he's using it is he's saying I'm sick as well as confused about being German. And I love the wordplay and the tension.
Very clever.
Right. And I think what's lacking is lack of authenticity. Now, a show or a music album or a podcast like this, I think sensationalism, it doesn't, you can maybe build yourself fast, but people are going to realize that you're a hollow shell and they're not going to follow you or watch you anymore or listen to you or look at your visuals unless you're being authentic about it. And I think that's going to be the currency going forward.
That is, you're right. And it's the same with the paranormal and the supernatural. People are starting to get a little tired of the AI videos and the fake regurgitated stories where all the facts are wrong. People want to hear from the real witnesses and see the real stuff. And so even people who follow the UFO phenomenon are starting to learn that it's so easy to fake now that they're digging back into the older files, the original X-Files, to find the truth, the kernels of truth of the real footage, the old Polaroids, the old film. Because now it's so drowned out with this, you know, as you say, inauthentic crap, that people want to have their own experiences, which, you know, when you're filming yourself on your phone and you're walking down the street and you're talking about stuff and you're making mistakes and maybe you cough, people can relate to that because they see a real person. And so all the little mistakes, even your intro, like mispronouncing a certain name or confusing one person with another, people love that because they're seeing a real person and they can say, okay, well, I can listen to this because it's actually happening.
Let me show you something really funny that we're talking about. I didn't even realize it. So I made some merch, right? Check this out. You can see it here. Link in the description below. Should be description.
There you go.
I didn't see that until my girlfriend pointed it out, and she doesn't speak English as well as I do. So that's authenticity for you. Or I'm a really busy guy. Who knows? But
I mean, we all make mistakes, but
it's the fun part. Like there's a song called, I'm a big Alice in Chains fan. Love them. Nice. There's a song called Rotten Apple where the intro of it, there's this awful fret buzz about maybe 15 seconds in, but I love the fret buzz, like where he didn't push the chord quite right on, I think it was a bar chord, I'm not quite sure what he's grabbing there, and I was like, I didn't get his finger on down, and he goes, and I go, I love that because it's, you know,
it's analog
analog versus digital, and I enjoy, that's why people went back to records and albums and things like that as well. So all right, now we'll get to the paranormal. We got there. We're 15 minutes later. Let's get to your experiences.
Like I say, I had a whole bunch that actually, what's going on here?
Yeah, we have a little bit of a situation. There we go. Maybe
we're back.
I think we're back.
That was spooky. Just this always happens. This happened with Tommy, I believe. We were
really?
talking about one thing, and I started talking about the paranormal and the government, and it cut off. Almost as though they were listening.
Almost as if the
there. Of experiences as a child. Oh, he's gone again. No, there you are.
Yeah, I'm back.
It must be a connection. It's got to be.
Yeah, it's probably I'm a Mexico dude. It's kind of par for the course sometimes. Sometimes it's great, sometimes not so great.
There you go. But yeah, I think more happened when I was around the age of 7 than any other time, and I've since read, you know, tons of books on the unexplained, and it's a case of that tends to be the age where it affects children, and strange things will happen. And it definitely peaked around 7 or 8 years old.
Hmm.
Um, Everything from ghost children and black shadows in the corner of the room, and books where the images in the book will move or someone will wink at you. Just weird stuff. I mean, the house itself, there was something going on. We lived on the edge of the forest, and I think it had something to do with the forest.
Oh yeah. Okay.
It's
That was weird.
it was like a dead air glitch.
I love it.
Yeah, it's yeah. When I think back to it, I mean, the history of the town. Everyone there's a legend around the town that everyone was taken there to be hung hundreds of years ago. So there's a lot of death in that forest. And there's a stagnant swamp on top of a hill inside. It's almost like a volcano, but filled with a stagnant pond in the middle of this forest. So, and it's really peculiar because you'd have to walk up to it to see down into it.
Okay.
Um, and it used to stink. If you threw a stick into it and disturbed the water, it would just reek of just rotten everything. Um, and after a few years, the local council decided that they were going to drain the swamp. Um, and sure enough, they did. And it was in the local newspaper. They found hundreds of skeletons in the swamp, and there were all animals, but there were rumors that there were people pulled out of there because, of course, if a dog was to run into the middle of the swamp, it was covered in sort of a duckweed, so it would look like grass, and you wouldn't see it. And as kids, we were told never to go there because it was so dangerous.
Right.
Because if you were to go in there, you'd never get out. You'd just be sucked down into this stinky. The fumes would probably knock you out and you'd die. But that held a lot of creep to that whole area anyway. The stink of it. But it makes you wonder. Did that affect the buildings around it? Is that why there was weird glowing lights in the room at night, and just strange noises outside, strange lights in the forest? As a kid, you can never really say because you're not used to it. You don't have the answers, so you half sort of just accept it, and then you half sort of scream for your mom, what's going on?
Right. So you've experienced some of these lights. I believe on Tommy you were talking about a specific experience you had with your aunt and uncle.
Yeah. So I told this about a million times, so if anyone's heard it,
a million and one.
I do apologize. But we're going to tell it anyway.
Sure.
So, yeah, my aunt and uncle had come to visit. Again, I was about 7 years old. And me and my mum lived in a small house, again, on the edge of this Murdershaw forest. The town was called Murdershaw. It's spelled differently, but the sentiment's the same. And it got to about 10 o'clock at night. I wasn't tired. My uncle had given me a dinosaur book. I was, happy to see them. I was wide awake. But it was 10 o'clock at night, and I was told, it's time for bed. And I thought, okay, well, it's not fair, but okay. I was a good kid. I went to bed. But I'm sitting in bed wide awake. Again, it's a small house, so I can hear laughter and the TV and clinking of glasses downstairs. And I'm thinking, oh, this isn't fair. I want to be downstairs. And I sort of turn over and I turn back. And my aunt and uncle are stood in the doorway, there to say goodnight, So I sort of sit up and say, oh, hey, thanks for the book. Good night, sleep well. It was great to see you, kind of thing. And I knew I wasn't going to see them again the next morning. They were probably going to leave early. So I was happy that I got to see them one last time. But they didn't answer me after I'd said goodnight. And so I sort of sat up a bit again and I said, well, good night. And they're only 10 feet away. It's a small room. So they had to have heard me. So it confused me. But they just stood there. And so I sort of rubbed my eyes and looked again. The whole light's on. So the light's shining from behind them. They're silhouetted. So I can't really make them out. I can't really make them out at all. My bedroom's dark. But, as a kid, I wasn't too much of a fan of the dark. So I had the whole light on, I'll admit. And so they're silhouetted in the doorway. And the more I look at them and I sit up, I realize they're a lot shorter than they should have been. And it soon became quite clear that it wasn't my aunt and uncle at all. It was a little boy and a little girl. And they started walking into the room, not directly at me or towards me, but sort of diagonally into the room across, but yet still towards me. And they're wearing frilly little clothes. They're not saying or doing anything. They're not rushing at me. They're just sort of drift walking into the room. Typical sort of ghost, as you would imagine. So I threw my pillow at them without looking. And I don't want to look at them. I'm terrified. I'm screaming, Mom, and this is happening in seconds. And I look up at the ceiling because I don't want to look at them. I look away. And as I do, and this is where it gets weird if it isn't weird enough, there's a green fireball the size of a soccer ball or a football. And it's traveling around the ceiling, almost like a goldfish in a tank. It's going around the four corners of the room and the ceiling. And every time I'm looking at this thing, it rushes down towards me, almost to force me to look at the kids. So I turn away from this fireball. I'm looking at the kids again. I'm thinking, oh God, no. Whole time I'm shouting for my mom. And again, this happens in seconds. And my mom rushes up. She rushes upstairs. She stops in the doorway, looks around, and then reaches in. Again, it's only 10 feet away, and there's my bed. She reaches in, grabs me, pulls me out of the room, and closes the door, and we all slept downstairs that night. And the next morning, I was told it was a bad dream. We're not going to talk about this. And I was really kind of annoyed in a way because I knew it wasn't. I knew I was awake. And my mum actually got quite annoyed herself because she didn't want me to persist in talking about it. She didn't like the concept of talking about ghosts or anything like that at all. So she was just sort of, we're not going to talk about this, and that's the end of it. So a couple of years go by, and I was visiting my aunt and uncle, and that night had come up in conversation. And so I asked my mom, I said, oh yeah, I remember that night, what happened, Mom? Let's talk about it. And she said, okay, you're old enough now. She says, just don't ask me again. That's the end of it. I'm just going to say this one thing, and then I don't like that kind of stuff. So just don't ever ask me again. She said, all I know is this, that there was something going on in your room that night that I didn't understand, and I just knew that I had to get you out of there. And that's the end of it. We're not going to talk about it again. And so to this day, I don't know what she saw.
Right.
But she saw something.
But your mom is part of that generation as far as my generation. I mean, my mom was born in 59 and my dad was born in 54. And that's after the war, no frills, no chills, hard work, reap your benefits.
Tough people.
And they ain't got time for green balls floating around the room and little girls in frilly dresses, and they don't got time for that shit. They got bills and stuff to pay. And I do understand it. Now, let's get back to, you said that you're seeing glowing things in the forest near your house. Is that what you're saying? Glowing lights in the forest?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would always sort of, when my mom would go into bed, she didn't know this, but I would creep out of bed, and I'd look out of the window and I'd look into the woods, and there was a highway or a main road on the other side of the forest. And I was well aware of the traffic that would continuously go through that, and every now and then there was a sort of a roundabout at the end of there where the cars would turn around, and as they would, the lights would occasionally sweep across the room, and so you knew that that's what that was. So if you ever saw anything strange, some would say, oh well, it was just the cars, you were just seeing the lights from the cars. I knew what they were, and so when something else happened that was strange, it was really quite evident to me that's not what that was. And so looking at the forest at night, I'd always look out for hedgehogs. In the moonlight, occasionally you'd see big spiky balls walking along, with a few little ones, and you could just make them out in the edge of the woods. And it was lovely to watch. It was really cool. And occasionally in the summer, my mom would take me for walks in the woods in the middle of the night looking for hedgehogs. So I'd have my coat on and my gloves and my little Wellington boots, and we'd traipse through the muddy forest and just sit on little tree stumps and watch the wildlife at night. It was an amazing childhood. It was really quite wonderful, full of nature.
Yeah.
So I knew what everything was in the woods, and I knew pretty much in my mind the blueprint of the layout of the woods. It was only a small area. and every now and then you wouldn't see flashlights or people carrying torches. Um, they would sort of be on the main trail path. There was a path that people would walk with their dogs and what have you. But in the middle of the night, there would really be nobody there. And if there was a torch, you could see it was a beam. It was an orange flashlight.
Right.
But what I would
Torches,
see,
flashlight. Yeah. Yep. Oh yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious what they are. But every now and then, I would see up in the trees, almost like, when you snap a glow stick and you shake it
Mm.
up, and it's literally one of those, or a glowworm, but massive. And occasionally you'd see one or two twinkle in the trees and then fade out. Now, we don't have those in England, as far as I'm aware. We don't have
Oh, you mean like
big
fireflies?
fireflies.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Is there
yeah, we don't
is there
have anything like
glowworms
that.
there though? The glowworms, the one that are on the ground?
Not that I'm aware of.
Because they have those in Germany, and I remember I was walking with my ex-wife in the woods one time, and we were maybe partaking in marijuana, and
Yeah.
I ran across one of those, and it kind of freaked
Hmm.
me out a little bit. I was like, "What is that?" She goes, "Oh, that's a glowworm." And I go, "Okay, so it's like a
Interesting.
worm on the ground that glows, and it's very bright in the woods." But fireflies, no, it's not. They're not there. It's weird.
Yeah, yeah. As far as I'm aware, there were no glowworms or fireflies in those woods. And these, I mean, even if there were, these were huge. These were sort of
Okay,
tennis ball size, maybe I would say. Really odd, but they'd blink out. I mean, they you couldn't make out what they were. It was literally just a point of light. And there was only ever sort of one or two. There was never sort of like you would see a swarm of insects flittering around. It was always sort of one or two. Really, really spooky, and strangely around summer as well, which
yeah. Well,
maybe more of a detail that people want to make note of. But it was, yeah, I never saw it around Christmas, and you would imagine if it was anything to do with spooky Christmas stuff, then it might be that. But no,
so if you, I can't remember the gentleman you named, the guy that you're doing the books with the 50 states. What was his name again?
David Weatherly,
David
David
Weatherly.
Weatherly, yeah.
Yeah, I'm supposed to know this person. I understand that. I know I'm supposed to know him, but there's so many to know. I mean, I know, Ron Moorhead and uh, um, MK Davis. These are like the people that I kind of frequent and talk to and things like that. So, but I know that he's a somewhat famous cryptozoologist. Have you picked his brain a little bit, or have you talked to him, and or like have you had any experiences yourself, or what is your thoughts about the, say for example, Sasquatch?
Yeah, I mean, I've known David for well over 10 years now. I've done probably 20 something books with him. Um, my artwork on the cover of his books that he's written, rather. Um, and we've talked on and off about legends and theories, and I've quizzed him on a few things, and Lauren Coleman as well, who owns the Cryptozoology Museum up in Maine. I've picked his brains a few times. He's an octogenarian now. He's really getting up there in age. So his brain is just a filing cabinet full of historical anecdotes to do with all kinds of things to do with cryptozoology. So he's always a good person to talk to. If there's a legend that you've heard of, but you don't quite have all the details, it's always good to ask these people, especially if they've written a book about it. Do they know anyone, or do they have any leads, or someone they can speak to, or even a witness that they've gone and interviewed themselves? You can always be
Right.
sort of put in touch with. Another guy is Ken Gerhard. I just did a book cover for him. He did The Essential Guide to Bigfoot, which I did the cover artwork for. And then he did The Essential Guide to Loch Ness and Other Aquatic Cryptids. And we just did The Essential Guide to Mothman and Other Flying Humanoids. And so I did the cover for that as well. And
No
he's
kidding.
another sort of as David Weatherly is a legend himself, um, as is Ken Gerhard. He's a cryptozoologist, but he's also a zoologist and a lecturer. He goes to all the different conferences. And Lyle Blackburn is another great guy to look out for if you've not heard of him. He's more of an expert on the southern Sasquatch and the Fouke monster, the Boggy Creek monster. He's written a
Oh, like this,
number
like
of books.
skunk ape and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. He's done
Okay.
a number of books. One of them being the Lizard Man is another mystery he's looked into. But in terms of Sasquatch, I mean, for me, I was out in the redwoods banging on trees with sticks and screaming into the darkness back in
The abyss.
2009, which is a good year before Finding Bigfoot even aired on TV. I was already out there doing the sort of running around and asking people with the video camera, if they'd seen anything. I've been out to Willow Creek. I've camped out in the redwoods. I've swam in the Klamath River with bald eagles flying over me and missing a black bear within 10 minutes of being in the river. There's a bear that's come down to that river. That was pretty hairy. Excuse the pun, but I've never seen.
We love puns. We love puns over here. If we don't, I definitely do. I'm a pun guy.
Oh yeah.
There's a pun there too.
Yeah.
No, actually, it's wordplay. Excuse me. I just did wordplay.
But yeah,
I mean, stand up, so it kind of happens. My brain just goes every which way, and sometimes it's just I don't know what the hell I'm thinking. So it is what it is. Yeah, please continue. But yeah, dude.
Yeah. I think I may have heard one, and that was in broad daylight in Ape Canyon. But anytime, I'll be the first to say it. Anytime I hear someone on a podcast say, "Oh, I think I heard one," I just think, "Well, that doesn't mean anything," because if you didn't see it, you didn't see it. I've never seen one. I did hear on the wind up in the mountains at Ape Canyon something howling, bellowing, like an opera singer, but really bassy, way up on the mountain, which really put chills through my bones when I heard it because I didn't know what it was. I could not fathom. My brain sort of, the gears kind of jammed because I couldn't process what I was listening to. So I always wonder, was that a Bigfoot? Did it see me at the time, and was it letting another one know, that we were approaching? I don't know. You can speculate, but
what was the feeling like when you had this feeling? Is it a feeling of fear that's like self-induced, or were you actually feeling something like a vibration?
It wasn't a situation of infrasound, if that's what you.
No, what I mean, it's not necessarily infrasound. Like a lot of times, it's like infrasound could be, where people were just. Sometimes it's not even a sound that they're making; it's just a feeling. You know what I mean? But sometimes people will hear it, and it's so alien to them, to not use that word, but the alien foreign to them, that it makes them feel like, okay, this is okay. Let's go off the animals. Is it a coyote? Is it is it a wolf? Is it a bear? Is it So I mean, it's definitely something. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've listened to tons of recordings of animals that have also been compared on various podcasts. People have played recordings of moose and the bugling sound that they make, even the roar of a bear. It's quite a short sort of breath that a bear will. It doesn't roar for particularly a long time. They certainly don't sing across mountains. Coyotes a little bit more high pitched. Even if you have multiple coyotes or wolves, even at the same time, there's a cadence to it which is a little more high pitched than a bassy, almost whale like resonance. You can almost feel how big whatever made that noise is. It's not a mountain lion, because again, a mountain lion, when they go off, they sound like screaming women.
Right.
And that's frightening. It sounds like a bunch of cackling witches in the woods. I've heard many recordings of that. The film footage you can look up on YouTube, and you can hear all kinds of animals if you just YouTube search them. The closest thing is, I would say, something like a bellowing moose, but after a while, there's almost like a whistle, like a fine-tuning metallic bugle whistle towards the end of the noises they make are just not quite the same. They almost go high pitch. And again, this thing it wasn't close enough to vibrate your body. It was being carried on the wind, but it was continuous. Most I could liken it to would be some kind of an engine, but definitely organic. It was very much like an opera singer bellowing.
Wow.
And I have no idea what that was.
Yeah. And that's fine. People are always like, they're attached to Like, they have to be definite in what they see. I definitely heard one, or I definitely
Yeah,
didn't. There's
yeah.
nothing wrong with saying, you know what, I don't know what the hell it was. And
It could have been anything.
it could have been
Yeah.
anything. So if you were to tell somebody that, I mean, I'd imagine, you can correct me, of course, in the line of work that you do, a lot of it is word of mouth. At least it started by word of mouth, and then people seeing it who have connections to other artists and bands and musicians and saying, okay, who did that? Oh, that's this guy. And then you kind of like just kind of grew from there. So what would you tell somebody who's starting out doing what you do? How would they kind of, because everyone's path is different, of course, and they're
Mhm.
not going to be the same as you are, and they're not, you know what I mean? But what would you say to someone? What kind of like motivation would you give to someone to do something that they enjoy doing, like yourself?
That's a great question. I think I would say I'd like to think I'm pretty successful. I mean, I'm comfortable, which for most people it should be your barometer of success. If you're comfortable, then you've done the right road choosing in a way.
Yeah,
But what I would say is to get into that comfortable spot, I would just say exactly what my mother told me, which was no one's going to knock on your door. You have to get out there, and you have to. If you don't ask, the answer is always no. So you have to get out there. You have to ask. If you want to, work with a certain person or a certain band or a certain author or a filmmaker, they don't know you exist. You can dream and hope and dream and hope, and you can create, all of the best artwork or music or writing in the world. But if no one sees it, then no one sees it. So you really have to just get out there, knock on the doors, and say, "Hey, look at this," or "I'd like to work with you. I've done this. What do you think of this?" Because again, as my mum said, no one's going to knock on your door. You really have to get out there.
yeah, yeah. Nobody owes you anything. Nobody owes you
Yeah,
anything. It's a lot of
yeah.
long days, long nights. Digging in
Yeah.
your couches for quarters or pence,
I
whatever you
know.
guys call
Yeah,
them.
I also think it's important to stay grounded as well. Is to understand that there's no such thing as the best. There's no such thing as the top, or that is the best of this in the world. There's no
Fair enough,
the
man.
best. There's no the best band in the world. There's no the
Oh,
best author or
true.
writer in the world. There's no the best artist in the world. We're all learning. We're all continually growing. The next thing you do every single time is better than your last. Hopefully.
Well, that's what drives you on because of your
Yeah.
imperfections. That your
Yeah.
imperfection is what makes you continue on. That's why, people go, whatever, any musician, you're like, you're 85. Why are you still out there playing the harp? And you're like, well,
Yeah.
I'm just starting to get better at this. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? A
Yeah.
lot of people want a fast road. They see like a certain thing and they think, well, that's what I want to be. So and I'm good. So you have to give it to me. And like people understand it's a grind. It's a
Oh yeah.
grind. You have to get out
Absolutely.
there every day and do it. So I think that's part of it too. It's like a bit of like self-determination and the willingness to to get your fingernails dirty and put in the time and work for it.
Yeah. Somebody once said, "Fail hard, aim to fail." The more marks you make on a piece of paper, the better something will look. You'll start to find the image in your drawing, and it's the same with music. If you twiddle around on your guitar, eventually you're going to start to hear what works and what doesn't.
Yeah.
And so, there's always going to be people who will look at your work, and for whatever reason, whether it's jealousy or whether it's they just simply don't like the flavor of your work, or maybe they are more experienced as you and they're just a nasty person. There will be people that will point out your work and say, "I don't like that, it's crap." um, and it's important to not be disheartened by that, but to learn from it, find out why, because you're not the problem. It's their problem and their perception of what you are doing. And that's not to say that your work is always amazing. It might be crap, but you
Yeah.
have to stay grounded, always listen to everybody else's view.
Yeah, you have to. It's like you have to be true to yourself. I think that's very important. Being true to
Yeah.
yourself, but doesn't mean you stand on this egoistic mound and say that
Yeah.
I'm perfect. You have to listen
Yeah.
to good as well as bad, and then like take it and try it. Say, hey, maybe you should do XYZ, and you try it and you
Yeah.
go, wow, that is better. And then from there, it actually, you can add that to your repertoire, which you're already doing, and get better because of it.
Oh yeah, everyone's on their own journey.
When it comes to what inspires you? What is your inspiration? Like, for example, you were talking about a certain person who had a saying. One of my favorite guitarists is very unknown. His name is Mike Scheid, and he's in a band called Yob. Love them.
Oh, I
you
know
should
Yob.
check them out. Psychedelic doom metal, open universe, and let pure love come in. It's my favorite band of all time. And he said, when it comes, I cannot believe, me and you got to be best friends. I do not know many people who know Yob. They're fucking fantastic. Just beautiful. Ascension, was it A Path to Ascend is like my favorite album, 2014. Just incredible. And he said when it comes to inspiration, he doesn't sit down with a guitar in his hand saying, I'm going to play this and I'm going to make this work. What he does is he puts the guitar in his lap and he does it on a continuous basis so that when the inspiration comes, his hands are already moving and he grabs it. It's like it comes out of the ether, or it comes out of whatever that the muse, or whatever word we like to use. And what do you get your inspiration from?
Well, I'm a big book collector. I should really be buying more bookshelves than books. For the
I'll come and put them up for you.
Yeah, it's always been a sort of a problem for me to not be able to leave a bookshop without buying a few books, particularly the smaller books, the mom and pop shops, the independent bookstores. I love secondhand books, old books. The smell of a book. And just thumbing through old illustrations, old natural history books, but particularly books on the unexplained, ghosts, Bigfoot, UFOs. The whole spectrum of the unexplained is everything I'll gravitate towards when I walk into a bookshop. Is I'll ask them, where's the section for this if I can't find it. But I'm always sort of making a beeline. Do they have any Bigfoot books or a UFO book? And that's really the main sort of inspiration. At the same time, I'll say in that same breath, I'm never bored. I almost, I don't wish it, but sometimes I say I wish I was bored because I've got too much to do.
Oh my God. Sounds just like me. I wish I could clone myself.
Yeah. There are just not enough hours in the day, not enough days in the year. So I'm never short of inspiration. If anything, I wish I could switch that off. I have piles of sketchbooks, piles of ideas. I have notes on my phone that are unfinished, one-liners and ideas that I've constantly got to feed back to. And I think we're living in an age where we're just so bombarded by information that we are constantly inspired. And we're slowly, we're in that little pocket now where this 10 years will be the era where everyone starts to filter out the crap, and we're really starting to gauge what really means something and what's worthy, what's truthful, and what's not.
What a great insight! What a beautiful insight.
We're finally starting to put things in the right files in order. But it's going to take another 10 years. We're in that moment now where all the social medias are so varied with TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and all the different platforms, as we were talking about. There's too many of them. We're now starting to almost have these little tribes where everybody on TikTok, I'm on TikTok, but I don't post anything. But yet there's an entire tribe of people on there that think differently to the people on Instagram. And I think we're starting to separate those mentalities and behaviors, and it's starting to change the way people's brains work. And so that obviously feeds into society. I come from a world where I collect old books, as I was saying, but I do find myself unable to go to the bathroom without taking my phone. We're living in that age.
Yeah, I lost my phone. Oh, I didn't lose it, but I left it out on my farm, and I can't find it through Google because there's no cell signal out there, which is also what I wanted. I bought 10 acres or 4 hectares in the middle of the fucking jungle here, dude. And yeah, dude, I got snakes, scorpions, jaguars, everything out here. And yeah, dude, we live our past, dude. You know what I'm saying? You're an interesting cat. And thank you so much for coming on. Yes, we do our thing, man. And I love interviewing interesting people. This may not be good in the algorithm. I don't give a shit. It's going to be what it is that I enjoy, and I enjoy talking to people like yourself. Is there anything right now that you're promoting, or is there anything that people should know? I mean, I know you got a book coming out that's either going to be this Christmas, next Christmas, and a couple other projects you're working on. But what is out right now, finished, that people can go and look at and see your work?
Well, there's two things really. Currently, that's accessible for people if they enjoy cryptozoology. I have a print store where I sell artwork. So you can go and see all kinds of different cryptids, Bigfoot, Mothman, you name it, lake monsters. Various prints are all on my Big Cartel store, which is also linked on my website. And there's also playing cards on there. There's Christmas cards on there based on the old creepy legends of Christmas.
Oh, cool, man. That's cool.
So if you like Christmas, but you want to send someone a darker Krampus style Christmas card, there's 40 different designs on there, different monsters. And there's 3 different sets of cards, and you can pick and choose. There's tons of stuff on there, but I'm on Patreon as well. So if people want to hang out with me and chat and talk, I go live for $1. I draw every Wednesday, so it's $1 a month, and I'll draw 4 times a month. And every 13th, I go for a little bit longer for a higher level on the Patreon. But 4 times a month for $1, I'm on Patreon. Come and hang out. I'll draw monsters, chat away, and we'll talk about all kinds of weird things.
No shit, that is cool, dude. I didn't even know that. And you gave me all those links, right? All those links you have given me, correct?
They're all there, yeah.
Okay, cool. So guys, go down to the links down below and go ahead and support Mr. Sam Shearon and his journey, man. This has been a lot of fun, man. I really appreciate it.
Good to meet you, Tommy, and we'll talk again. Thanks for the invite.
Anytime, dude. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. Remember, we are the eye. We are aware. I love you all. Have yourself a good day, night, evening, Christmas, Krampus, later.